It is one of the most astonishing archaeological revelations of the year. Agriculture was already practiced in the Amazon rainforest over 10,000 years ago. Long before the pyramids rose in Egypt, before the first cities of Sumer formed, indigenous peoples of the Amazon basin were domesticating crops, engineering their landscape, and constructing permanent settlements. This turns upside down the long-standing myth that the Amazon was a pristine wilderness until modern contact. Instead, it suggests that the Amazon was one of the earliest cradles of civilization on Earth, an ecological and cultural experiment that lasted millennia. The story begins when humans first arrived in the Amazon. Exactly when people arrived in the Amazon is still up for debate. Estimates vary from 30,000 to 15,000 years ago, but it seems to have been remarkably soon after people arrived in the Americas. By 11,000 years ago, most of the megafauna had disappeared, some of which was depicted in the stunning rock art found recently in the Colombian Amazon, and dated to 12,500 years ago. In the floodplains of southwestern Amazonia, in a region called the Llanos de Moxos in present-day Bolivia, archaeologists discovered mysterious forested mounds rising out of seasonally inundated grasslands. Initially dismissed as natural formations, these forest islands have now been revealed to be ancient artificial mounds, some more than 10,800 years old. Excavations at sites such as Isla del Tesoro and several other sites uncovered a wealth of archaeological material, including stratified deposits of charcoal, fish bones, burnt clay, and the shells of aquatic snails. Though not as massive as the lost cities found elsewhere in the Amazon and dated to 2,000 years ago, these were the forerunners of those later civilizations. These sites display continuous occupation for thousands of years. The most ancient occupation layers date to over 10,600 years ago, making them some of the oldest known permanent settlements in the Americas. Rather than moving seasonally as foragers, these people lived year after year to the same locations, shaping the land to suit their needs. They created raised platforms to protect themselves from seasonal flooding and developed sophisticated strategies for harvesting resources from the surrounding wetlands. Although the Amazon's hot and wet environment is typically hostile to the preservation of DNA, recent genetic studies from adjacent regions have yielded breakthroughs in our understanding of who these early settlers were. Ancient genomes from Lagoa Santa in Brazil and other nearby sites have shown that early South American populations were genetically diverse and often distinct from later Native American populations. However, these ancient individuals were not isolated. The forest islands' occupants interacted with groups from across the continent. Their genetic profile connects them to larger population networks, confirming that the Amazon was not a backwater, but a vibrant center of early human life. The clearest indicator of cultural sophistication in these ancient communities is their early adoption of agriculture. Analysis of soil and plant samples from the forest islands reveals evidence of early crop cultivation dating back to at least 10,000 years ago. Remains of domesticated plants, including manioc, cassava, squash, peanuts, sweet potato, pineapple, Brazil nut, chili peppers, and even avocado, have been identified in archaeological layers, along with starch grains indicating processing and storage. Unlike the massive field-based agriculture of later civilizations, Amazonian agriculture was embedded in the forest. These people practiced a form of agroforestry, cultivating useful plants amid natural vegetation, and encouraging the growth of food-bearing trees such as palms and Brazil nuts. Their cultivation strategy enhanced biodiversity and sustainability, creating anthropogenic forest patches that persist to this day. Even more impressively, they created and maintained terra preta, a rich, dark soil made from charcoal, bones, compost, and ash. This soil is far more fertile than the natural Amazonian earth and can regenerate itself, allowing for permanent farming without exhausting the land. The creation of terra preta speaks to a deep ecological knowledge and long-term planning that rival the innovations of ancient Mesopotamia or the Nile Valley. Beyond farming, the Amazon's first civilizations manipulated the landscape in ways that suggest planning, coordination, and environmental mastery. The forest islands themselves were artificial constructs, elevated platforms built with layers of burned clay, shells, and refuse, designed to remain dry during flood seasons. This allowed their inhabitants to live year-round in areas otherwise unsuitable for permanent settlement. These circular mounds were not merely utilitarian. Many were carefully layered and contained evidence of repeated occupation and renovation. Midden deposits, composed of food waste like snail shells and animal bones, were compacted into thick layers, sometimes up to a meter deep. Hearths, post holes, and clay floors indicate that dwellings were repeatedly constructed, used, and rebuilt on the same sites for thousands of years. The complexity of these constructions predates similar mound-building traditions in North America. They are among the oldest known examples of humans altering their environment for habitation in the New World. In some areas, the practice of mound building would evolve into monumental earthworks and ceremonial centers, but its roots lie in these early forest islands. Among the most powerful discoveries in these forest islands are formal burials of human individuals. These burials, located beneath layers of shell middens, show signs of intentional placement and ritual behavior. The individuals were typically buried in extended positions, often with red ochre, and sometimes accompanied by grave goods. These early Amazonians did not treat death as an afterthought. Their careful burial practices suggest a deep connection to place, memory, and spirituality. The use of red ochre, a mineral pigment with symbolic significance across ancient cultures worldwide, may indicate a belief in the afterlife or the importance of the ancestors. The burial sites also provide insight into the health and lifestyles of these populations. Many individuals had worn down teeth, indicating a diet rich in coarse or gritty foods. Some showed signs of degenerative joint disease and skeletal trauma, suggesting long lifespans and active lives. These people were not brutish foragers, but sophisticated, long-lived individuals embedded in enduring communities. Further southeast in the Lagoa Santa region, archaeologists uncovered some of the oldest human remains in the Americas, including a burial of a decapitated skull with the hands placed over the face dated to 9,500 years ago. Interestingly, this practice seems to have only lasted about 200 years, with burials before and after this time not having been dismembered. The skeletal remains date back over 10,000 years and exhibit cranial features unlike those of later Native American populations. Initially thought to suggest a different origin, these features are now understood to reflect the diverse morphological variation present in early South American populations. However, genetic analysis of Lagoa Santa individuals confirms that they too carried ancient lineages connected to early founding populations. The region's archaeological record includes hundreds of burials, complex funerary rites, and signs of seasonal occupation and plant use. The similarities between Lagoa Santa and the Amazonian forest islands, especially in terms of age, burial practices, and subsistence, suggest that both were part of a broader network of early culture in South America. Perhaps the most surprising finding is the discovery of a genetic signal known as Population Y, a lineage that seems to share ancestry with present-day Australo-Melanesian populations, such as Papuans and Aboriginal Australians. This signal is found in some ancient and modern Amazonian groups, but is largely absent elsewhere in the Americas. While the exact origin and significance of this genetic ancestry remains debated, its presence suggests that the peopling of the Americas was far more complex than previously thought. Some early migrations may have entered South America through a Pacific coastal route, or a very early entry before 30,000 years ago, bringing with them both genetic diversity and cultural innovation. Recent genomic and archaeological discoveries have added a final, revolutionary chapter to this story. Based on a new analysis of ancient DNA, scientists discovered strong evidence that populations radiated outward from the Amazon basin in multiple directions, particularly northward to Panama and southward to Uruguay and Argentina. From northeastern Brazil, people expanded up the Atlantic coast into Panama. One individual from Panama shares significant ancestry with earlier Amazonian populations. This supports the hypothesis that the Amazon was not a remote refuge, but a cultural and genetic source, a point of origin for migrating groups. Southward, the migration continued through Lagoa Santa and into modern-day Uruguay and Patagonia. An ancient genome from Uruguay shows a clear link to this southward expansion. These migrations followed coastlines and river systems, suggesting that early Amazonians were adept travelers, capable of navigating complex environments. Whether by dugout canoe or through overland corridors, they spread not just their genes, but their knowledge of plants, fire, soils, and community life. This new understanding challenges the classic bearing straight to Patagonia model of migration and places the Amazon at the heart of early South American history. The rainforest, once thought to be an isolated endpoint, was in fact a starting point, a launch pad for cultural diffusion across the continent. The discoveries at the forest islands of the Amazon basin represent a profound shift in our understanding of civilization's origins. These ancient peoples were not nomadic primitives, but skilled ecologists, agriculturalists, engineers, and spiritual thinkers. They created enduring settlements in a challenging environment, sustained themselves for millennia, and transformed the landscape in ways still visible today. Their genetic fingerprints connect them to some of the earliest humans in South America, and perhaps even to mysterious Australasian-related populations that hint at forgotten migrations. Their agricultural practices were among the first in the world, rivaling those of the Fertile Crescent and the Yangtze River Valley in antiquity. Their forest management systems created one of the most biologically diverse regions on Earth. Whatever the case, rather than isolated oases, these regions were hubs of human development, contributing to the continent's cultural and biological mosaic. Lagoa Santa and the forest islands may have had contact or shared common ancestry, revealing a rich and layered prehistory far older than the Andean or Mesoamerican civilizations that would follow. Despite thriving for thousands of years, the forest islands appear to have been gradually abandoned around 3,000 to 2,500 years ago. The reasons are not fully known, but several factors may have contributed. Shifting river systems and changes in flooding patterns could have made some settlements uninhabitable. Climatic events may have disrupted the balance of agroforestry systems, but it also aligns with the expansion of more sophisticated, centralized agricultural societies from Central America. It could be that these more advanced civilizations drove the small farmer hunters out of business. Yet their legacy remains. Terra Preta still supports modern agriculture. Forest composition continues to reflect human selection of plants. Satellite imagery has revealed vast networks of geometric earthworks, roads and settlements hidden beneath the canopy. The forest islands laid the foundation for everything that came after. The Amazon, far from being a green void, was a green cradle. It bore a civilization that gave as much to the world as it took. Its story, long buried under forest and forgetfulness, is now being written back into history, layer by layer, genome by genome, and mound by mound.